things. Right. That looks like it's on, I believe. Well, let's actually find out. Let's actually find. No, it looks like we're on the screen. Now let's see the audio. I must check this audio first. I will not fuck it up this time. So, you speak, my man.
Speaking as I drink.
You speak.
Yeah.
Speaking. Yep. All right, that works. Great. We can do it.
Cool.
Yes. And let's share this in the Discord first. Copy link. And then on the X app.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, folks.
Ew.
I've noticed that I've had to put I have to put a bit of text before I put your name, because if I put your name at the start, it counts as a reply and not a tweet.
Oh, right.
It doesn't come up on my page.
Right.
Editron and I are live talking about. I was gonna say talking about men touching each other. That's probably not a good idea. Talking about WrestleDream. There we go. Great. Okay, now we can get down to business. Hello everyone, and welcome to our predictions of AEW WrestleDream, which is a new pay-per-view that Mr. Tony Khan has added onto the calendar as a tribute to the late great Antonio Inoki in US time zone October the 1st, which is, I believe, it's like the 1 year anniversary since Antonio Inoki passed away. I think it's back. Yeah, it is back. I don't know what the hell happened there. Must have been sharting itself slightly. Okay, well, it's back now. Yeah. Hopefully that doesn't happen again. So, this is interesting. We are in a very... Well, it seems like AEW is in a very eventful part of its calendar at the moment.
It is.
Some people would argue that makes it all the more exciting. Some people would argue that it waters down the big events. But I don't know. I'm not sure how to feel about it, to be honest. This is one of the only... In terms of looking at the card, it's an exciting show on paper. But this is actually one of the shows that I'm going into with... I don't really know what to expect, which is interesting because the last pay-per-view we had, I also didn't know what to expect either, and it turned out to be great.
That's very true. That's very true.
I think, like All Out, this could be a very good show. But in terms of long-term, is having all of these big events so close together a negative?
I don't think inherently it is a problem, because if we're looking at the card just as it is, it's a lot of big names on the card with some pretty big matches with some big implications, I'd say. There's one or two matches on this, or three really, that are like pretty well built with some consistent booking from a couple of wrestlers' perspective. I think there's some really good
definitely
stuff
some
on this
marquee
card.
matches, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Although a bit like All Out, it is missing. It is not. It does not feature a world title match.
No, it does not.
But Grand Slam had that. Dynamite Grand Slam had 2.
Yes.
And they were great. They were really that Dynamite Grand Slam was a fucking hell of a show. Jesus Christ. What a great episode of Dynamite that was. My word. You had bloody Eddie Kingston and Claudio, which was amazing. You had Jericho and Sammy, which had that really big twist at the end. They did the big tribute to the WrestleMania 19 match. You had Tony Storm and Saraya, who told a really great like heel versus heel story that is all built in within the Outcasts and both of their characters. You had MJF versus Samoa Joe, which was amazing. I think there was a 5th match, but I can't remember which one it was. Might have been international title, yeah. Moxley versus Phoenix, which was a good match, but unfortunately there was injuries. Which was probably, unfortunately, the big talking point of that show. But anyway, yeah, WrestleDream. I obviously, this being a tribute to Antonio Inoki, this is a New Japan, not massively heavy card like Forbidden Door is, but there is definitely quite a few New Japan names on this card, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I have noticed over the last couple of years, since like 2021, Tony Khan has become quite he I wouldn't say reliant, but he definitely likes to use the New Japan talent a lot.
Yeah.
So I am interested to see what the long-term effects of doing more pay-per-views is. I would imagine that part of why they're able to get away with doing more pay-per-views now is probably because of the addition of Collision and the expansion of the roster.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense to me. It's and now we're now in the 4th year. Yeah, the company's now been going on for a little while. It's now, and the growing issue with the product, it seems, in terms of the last year or so, is the in between pay-per-views, the 4 pay-per-views of the year. The bills can often be quite stagnant at times. So having an extra pay-per-view or 2, I think, in the calendar, I think does help squeeze it just a bit more.
Yes.
Allows it to not feel as dragged out as a lot of feuds in the last year have been, because I think that's been a slight issue sometimes with some feuds.
The only thing that could be potentially hazardous, though, when you think about people who are watching WWE and AEW, I would be concerned if we got to a point like during the Monday Night Wars when people were watching 24 pay-per-views a year. That could be a problem. Because WWE seemingly have slightly cut down since Triple H took over. They don't have a December pay-per-view anymore, which thank God for that, because that was overkill. But there was that period of time from about, it was because I talk about Collision being added and then you get more pay-per-views. It was the same thing when WCW added Thunder. They added more pay-per-views to their calendar, and what you basically got was you got one WCW and WWF pay-per-view every month, which meant you got basically, it was pretty much one pay-per-view every 2 weeks on average, and that's not even counting ECW if you wanted to count that as well. I mean, I think the year 2000 had something ridiculous like 30 pay-per-views between the 3 companies, which is just too much. But having said that, the thing is, the big 4 pay-per-views that they started with, it made more sense when they had less TV time and a smaller roster. You know, when it was just Dynamite and Dark every week for the first 2 years. And the roster was smaller, especially during COVID. There's no way you could have gotten away with doing more pay-per-views during COVID. Like, having 4 COVID pay-per-views is enough. Adding Forbidden Door was a good idea. Adding All In was a good idea, especially given the circumstance. I think this pay-per-view needs to prove why it belongs on the calendar, and I'm sure they will do that.
Yeah.
I feel like I'd be a lot more concerned about this if All Out hadn't been as good as it was.
Yeah. I think this
I think,
show,
I think
like a lot of
AEW
shows, this has a lot of potential to
I think
knock it out of the
AEW
park.
in 2023 can get away with this because it's on a real hot streak right now.
Yes. Yeah.
Even without CM Punk, it's doing very well, creatively speaking.
Definitely. I think so. At the moment, yeah.
Yeah.
It seemingly coasted along very well since All In.
Yeah. Now, I have really liked the very unique graphics they've done for the match card for this show. I would like to see some creativity when it comes to the staging. They did really well with All Out with the staging for Chicago. This has the potential to have something really special for its staging because the graphics are very different to what we're used to in AEW. AEW usually has quite robust and very identifiable visual images, even if they're abstract like Revolution, where it's all tech-based. There seems to be a consistent tone of, what you see is what you get, whereas this is going for a much more like, when they say WrestleDream, they literally mean that. The graphics for this this show are very designed around that whole concept of dream. I think there is potential to really do some special stuff with that, and I think there's a couple of matches on this card that could really play into that, especially one of the tag team matches, because there's a gimmick on this card that I feel like could make the most of the theme of the pay-per-view and its sort of visuals. And yeah, they certainly have the resources to do it, so it would certainly be a very, very nice thing to get when by contrast, when you look at the B pay-per-views that WWE does, you get the generic Raw and SmackDown stage like they did at Payback, and that's just not very appealing. Yeah. Anyway, we don't have any of the 0 hour matches announced yet. Once they do get announced, we'll put in the comments after the fact what our predictions are. We only have the 10 matches that have been announced for the main card as of today, which is just after the Go Home Dynamite. So yeah, that's what we have so far. I've got all my predictions written down. I also have my Androzani pick and my Genesis pick written down. Yeah. Anything else you want to say before we crack into the predictions?
No, I'm pretty much good to go.
Okay, then. Let's talk about the number one contenders match for the AEW World Tag Team Championship, which is a 4-way tag match between the Young Bucks, the Guns, the Lucha Brothers, and Orange Cassidy and Hook, which has been quite the interesting interview pairing on TV ever since Cassidy won the international title. So it's interesting to see a number one contenders match on a pay-per-view. It's not often you get that, but that does happen sometimes. I remember Full Gear 2021 had that. It was, I believe it was Bryan Danielson versus Miro, and Danielson won that and then challenged Hangman Adam Page. But yeah. An unusual thing. I feel like this is the kind of match you usually see on TV.
Yeah, it's definitely this kind of match is definitely more on TV. You don't see often contendership matches on big events like this. It's very rare.
Yeah.
Especially for AEW.
I definitely think if WrestleDream didn't exist, this would be a Dynamite match. Anyway,
Yeah, I am looking forward to it though.
oh yeah, I'm sure it'll be absolute fucking chaos. Knowing who's in the match, it's gonna have a good mix of athleticism and humor. All four of these teams have that in the bag. They have a lot of athleticism. Well, I wouldn't call the Guns super athletic, but they can wrestle. But in terms of showmanship, they all have their own very. They love to play to the crowd, especially Orange Cassidy, and the Guns. They're very crowd heavy. The Young Bucks, their style is pretty signature. I would be not surprised at all if the EVPs have a big role in constructing this match, because they usually are very involved in sort of putting it all together, but they are collaborative. I predict this will be a lot of fun, and I have a hunch, because I'll just double check this. I believe that Full Gear, which is the next pay-per-view after, is in Inglewood, California, which is very close to the hometown of the Young Bucks, which is why I have predicted them to win, because I feel like, based on the non-handshake from All In, I think they're going to challenge FTR again. This is also my Androzani pick. So if you get it right, you get half a point. If you get it wrong, you lose one.
Oh, okay.
I've decided.
Yeah.
I know this is not good strategy, but the reason why I've done that is because this has 4 options. So it's very unlikely that you get it right, mathematically speaking.
Yeah. Well, I've gone for Orange Cassidy and Hook.
Mm-hmm.
And my main reason is I think they will want to keep up Orange's momentum in terms of being in and around tiles. And I feel like this would be, at the moment, it's probably the unexpected pick, but I think Cassidy winning and it being FTR against Cassidy and Hook, I think would be quite a banger little match.
It would certainly be a clash
and
of styles.
Yeah. And it would be a nice step up for Hook, because I feel like for a long time he has been obviously in and around the FCW championship, obviously. But I want him to at least have that moment of trying to step it up a gear, which I think would be quite neat. And obviously with Cassie, I think he can have an absolutely amazing tag match with FTR.
Orange Cassidy
keeping his
giving
momentum going. Yeah.
Orange Cassidy giving Hook the rub, if you will, is the right way to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I could have gone for Young Bucks. I could have gone for Lucha Bros. I don't think the Guns are winning, as much as they're sort of slowly getting back up in terms of momentum with all the Bullet Club stuff, which has been great. I think Cassidy and Hook would be a really nice little dark horse choice. I think.
Well,
in terms of options they could use.
There was a period of time for AEW, and this I will be fully honest and say this is a period of time where I wasn't watching much of it. But there was a period of time for AEW between after CM Punk and the Elite had their brawl and got suspended, and just before Collision started, so around Double or Nothing. There was a period of time for AEW where they went through a lull. And not to say there wasn't good stuff, because there absolutely was. MJF won the title. He had an IMO match with Danielson. There was plenty of good stuff in that period of time, But there was that sort of 6-month period from like the end of 2022 to start of 2023 when AEW went through a lot of growing pains after Brawl Out and before Collision started, where they were really lost a lot of that momentum they had before. And one of the biggest issues of that period of time is a lot of their bright stars they were building became really stale, and the booking didn't carry their momentum, and they lost a lot of their steam. Hook is one of them. Wardlow is certainly one of them. That dude went from like one of the biggest stars in the company when he squashed MJF And by the time he lost the TNT title to Luchasaurus, he was like fucking dead in the water. And then you've got someone like Jade Cargill, who was always a star, but her title reign became really stagnant. And now she's in WWE, which is crazy. And there's a few other options you could look at in there, but there's quite a few names. Keith Lee is one of them. Jesus Christ. That dude's been on pause for a long time. There were people that were off TV during that period of time, like Malachi Black, like Andrade, like Miro. And it was just this weird period of time for AEW where a bunch of their upcoming stars, or just stars in general, went through very strange phases where they weren't doing much. Hook is one of them, and they finally seem to actually be getting him back on track.
Mm-hmm.
By pairing him with a bunch of people that he can have dynamics with. It started with Danhausen, then it was Jack Perry, and now it's Orange Cassidy. Yeah. I don't think we need to see the Guns challenged FTR again. I think we've already seen that feud. And we've already seen a feud between the Lucha Bros and FTR as well. I know I say that about the Bucks, but the Bucks have a story to go in there. Orange Cassidy and Hook versus FTR would definitely be the freshest match. And I would actually be keen to see that match, but I just have this feeling based on that moment at the end of All In that the business isn't finished between them. And I suspect that the Young Bucks might challenge FTR again at Full Gear 3 years after their first match. And in California. And win back the belts. It wouldn't surprise me. Funnily enough, they're also the Ring of Honor 6-man tag team champs with Hangman as well. So that would be an interesting collection of belts to have. Yeah. Anyway, let's move on to the next match. We have the TBS Championship. I actually am really looking forward to this match because it's with two female wrestlers who have hit their peak this year. And that is Chris Statlander versus Julia Hart from the House of Black. So Julia Hart's been on a 27 match winning streak, I think it is now.
Yeah, very protected.
The last person she lost to was Chris Statlander. So she's challenging her for her title now. Statlander has also been on a roll. She's been having banger after banger. She's been the workhorse of the women's division. Her match, her like sort of send-off match with Jade Cargill on Rampage was really, really well done. She gave Jade her best ever match at the end of her AEW run. Her match with she had a match. Oh god, I'm trying to remember now. She had a match with Ruby Soho at All Out. She also had a match with, I can't remember who it was. My mind is blanking, but she had a match with someone and it was really, really good. I can't remember now. Anyway. Yeah. This should be certainly interesting. Julia Hart has come leaps and bounds in the ring. And it's not just as an athlete and her sort of fundamentals, but her storytelling is so good now. And I really like her pairing with Brody King, the way she hides behind him because he's this big brick wall.
Yeah.
It's a very unique scenario you don't see much of, and that's a male manager for a female wrestler. I mean, you get it with, like, Jade Cargill had Mark Sterling and Stokely Hathaway. You do get that sometimes, but it isn't as common as you'd expect. And I think Brody King and Julia Hart is a very unique combination. I do predict Chris Statlander to retain. Even though Julia Hart has been on a roll, I feel like this could go either way because Julia Hart has a lot of momentum, but I feel like Julia Hart still has so much time left, and she's making good progress, but I still feel like she still hasn't hit her final form. And you know, she's only 21 years old. Like there's plenty of time for her, and a loss wouldn't be that bad. And Statlander is on a good roll, and I don't see any particular reason to take the belt over right now. So yeah, I have gone with Statlander. Not like massively confidently, but you know, fairly confidently.
Yeah, I've also gone the same. I also predict Statlander to win. I think that's a pretty easy choice because I think Statlander is on a really good roll right now, matches and sort of momentum. And I think while Julia has come leaps and bounds these like past year or so, I think it wouldn't. I don't think it would make sense to put it on Julia at this moment in time because I don't think she's fully ready. I think she still needs probably a bit more time before she can have that responsibility.
I remember now. She had it was the collision match with Britt Baker. I was forgetting who it was. Statlander and Baker had Baker's best match since she lost the women's title to Thunder Rosa, which was like so long ago now, like a year and a half. That was ages ago. St. Patrick's Day Slam, I think 2022, something like that. Anyway, yep, Statlander's to win, but I'm curious to see how this all pans out. Because the House of Black put a lot of attention to detail in their storytelling, and they've had Julia Hart poison Miss Willow Nightingale, which led to a match between them, where Julia got the win. Now, the next match is one that was made it was made today. Literally today it was made, at least in terms of my clock. It was made on Dynamite. And it is a sort of follow-up to the last feud that was involved between the two sort of sides. And that is Ricky Starks versus Wheeler Yuta of the Blackpool Combat Club, obviously coming off his two losses to Bryan Danielson, one in a strap match at All Out and one in a Texas death match on Collision, both of which were incredible matches that told great stories and has really further cemented Ricky Starks as a big star. They're telling a really interesting story where Ricky wants to show Danielson respect and Wheeler Yuta and Big Bill are clashing over that. I really like the promo on Dynamite as well, how Yuta started politely, and as soon as Ricky Starks didn't respond well, he's like, well, now I can tell you how I really feel. I actually think that Wheeler Yuta has recently really come into his own as a promo, which is he's much improved than what he was.
Yeah, when you look at stuff like from a year or so ago, you was never terrible, but he never really had the same enthusiasm of someone like an MGF he would often go up against.
That's the thing, though, is that he got steamrolled by the best in the business, didn't he? It's kind of difficult to match MJF on the mic, especially when you're out there in front of the fans. But he did well here with Ricky Starks. I think this one's a pretty obvious one. I think Ricky Starks is winning this match. I think he needs a win after losing to Danielson twice. I would be very surprised if Wheeler Yuta won this. And yeah, I was considering this to be my Genesis pick, but I think I'm gonna take a bit of a risk. I'm gonna take a bit more of a risk with it this time. Even though this is probably a foregone conclusion, I think I might try and do something a bit spicier with my Genesis pick. But I predict Ricky Starks to win this match pretty decisively.
Yeah, I've gone for Starks as well, and this is my Androzani pick.
I see. Half point if I
either
win,
you get
or -1 if I lose. Well, if Wheeler Yuta wins, I'm fucked.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I am very confident in Starks winning, though.
Very interesting. Yeah. I'm definitely looking forward to the match, though, seeing what these two guys can do in the ring.
Yeah, should be good, very good match though.
Yeah, Ricky Starks has been on an absolute tear. Ever since Collision started, he's been one of the best things in AEW.
Yeah, he's been very much like I said when Punk was terminated. It really should have been around. The Collision really should be around, like people like Danielson and Starks, and give them the platform to have not only great programs but great matches. And so far, that is the case. And then going exactly how they probably should be doing.
It's interesting because it seems like every time Ricky Starks turns, he just takes it to the next level. So last year, when he had his babyface turn, it took him from FTW up to challenging MJF for the world title, and that really got a lot of people behind him. And then when he turned heel during the Owen Hart tournament, it took him even further up the ladder in terms of the fan perception, and his promos have become very passionate, and they are very, very attention grabbing. And he has definitely got a chip on his shoulder. He's definitely saying, "How dare this company not consider me a top star? I'm sick and tired of it." Like for him, there's really no excuses, and they are actually using him now. I think Collision has been a godsend for quite a few talent, but I think Ricky Starks is one of the biggest benefit factors of that. He's been one of the best things about Collision. It is a shame that his feud with CM Punk got cut short, but it's been replaced by a feud with Bryan Danielson, which has resulted in 2 banger matches, so I can't really complain. Yeah, should be good. Right, the next match is for the Ring of Honor World Championship and the New Japan Strong Openweight Championship. It's between Eddie Kingston and Katsuyori Shibata, who were tag team partners at the last pay-per-view against the Blackpool Combat Club. This is obviously babyface versus babyface. It's going to be a more of a sort of a respect match, I think, and it should be very physical and strike heavy. This is my Genesis pick. I've gone for Eddie Kingston to win this one. I'd be very surprised if Shibata became a 3-belt champion.
Yeah, I have also gone for Kingston. They're just, it does make sense for him to drop the belts now after he just won it a week ago.
Yeah, I think it'll
it's pretty simple. This will be a fun 8 to 10 minute match, I imagine.
Yeah, bit of a strike fest.
Try and make it a big strike fest. Trying to put some brutal shots in, and that should be all the match really needs.
The other thing is these two guys have quite a good sense of humor as well. So you could really go either route of this. You could make it like a fun match, but you could also take it quite seriously as well. It's not a grudge match in the same way as match with Claudio was, but I expect if I were to hazard a guess, I think of all the matches on this card, if there's one that's going to tribute to Antonio Inoki the most, it's probably this one. Because Shibata is obviously from New Japan, and Eddie Kingston is such a fan of Japanese wrestling. He has so much respect for Inoki's legacy. I feel like this match will probably be the most tribute to Inoki that there is on the card. Yes. Now, move on to a 2 out of 3 falls match for the TNT Championship. I am very, very much looking forward to this because I have absolutely loved the character work around this title since Collision has started. We have Christian Cage, who is
since the first episode, really.
Yeah, Christian Cage, who now is the actual TNT champion. He won it in a triple threat off Luchasaurus. Christian Cage versus Darby Allin. I think this match will bang. I think it'll be absolutely brilliant. And I think Christian Cage is going to retain. What is my reason for this? Because people say, oh, it's in Darby Allin's hometown. He won the TNT title in his hometown on Dynamite earlier this year. Well, I'll tell you why. There's a few reasons for this. Number one, Christian Cage has just won it. So his story is still continuing with the TNT title. I think there's so much more he can do with it. I think he can really just... There's endless amounts of stuff he can do as champion going forward continuously. I think at some point we'll probably see him feud with Luchasaurus for the belt, maybe Full Gear. May see Luchasaurus turn babyface in the process. And there's also another there is also another person that might come into AEW that might be relevant to him. Who knows? But there's also another thing. I am aware that next year Darby Allin wants to climb Mount Everest because he's a crazy nut.
Mm-hmm.
And despite the fact that there's been multiple people that have died to avalanches trying to climb it recently, he still wants to do it because he's insane. But I imagine he's probably going to be taking quite a bit of time off from wrestling to train for that. And having the TNT title on him might be a bit of an issue if that's the case. So I think Christian Cage is going to beat Darby Allin in his hometown to thunderous boos. And it's going to be great fun. It's also 2 out of 3 falls, so you could have Darby Allin win the first fall, which makes him seem like the champ. And then Cage somehow sneaks in 2.
Yeah. Cage's run with this title has really been that sort of creative flair that something that has been missing from like Edge's run with WWE.
Mm-hmm.
And that sort of like creative idea that he runs with, and it's sort of quite brilliant. And everything Cage has done has just been the past like couple months has been.
He's always been known for his
very
attention
good.
to detail. He's very, very particular.
Yeah.
Like when you look
The
at
fact that now there's just a massive meme about dead fathers now is just
Yep.
It's quite crazy.
And he's just like, I would have invited Buddy Wayne to see this match, but I can't. It's just despicable. It's just despicable. I saw a pitch from Sean Ross Sapp about if Edge comes into AEW, they could try and do a Sting and Lex Luger thing of a babyface and a heel in a tag team, where Edge is the babyface, Christian's the heel, but they're both aligned together, and Edge is like, yeah, I know my friend's an asshole, but he's still my friend. Like, there's so much comedy you could do with that. Anyway, yeah, Cage has always been very particular with his attention to detail when it comes to choosing his theme music, to his attire, to his promos, to his mannerisms. He is very, meticulous when it comes to his booking. And AEW being such a playground for an artist like him, just given especially the fact that he's proven himself as a draw and as someone who can actually create good TV as a veteran, and also in ring he has some of the best footwork, some of the best ring psychology. There's just so much to like, and the match he had with Darby Allin on Collision recently was a banger. It was such a good match. I think one of the biggest ironies about Christian Cage is that he's actually like ripped, but he wears a turtleneck in his matches because he doesn't want you to see him. He thinks you don't deserve to see his body. It's fantastic. Anyway, you haven't given your official prediction.
I think Cage will win.
Yeah.
And this is my Genesis pick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm very confident saying he will win. Very, very much so. I think it'll be a very good match as well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think Darby Allin has been an absolute masterclass this year. I think he's really been one of the MVPs of the company.
Mm-hmm.
Him and Orange Cassidy, in terms of TV matches and pay-per-view matches, to be fair. God, the match he had with... Dude, he had he had that match with Luchasaurus All Out, which was awesome. He had that match with Roderick Strong on Collision, which was insane. The one where he took the backbreaker on the turnbuckle. I couldn't believe that when I saw that. He had that triple threat recently. He's had those matches tagging with Nick Wayne and the matches tagging with Sting, like the coffin match. It's just ridiculous. He's so good. So good at what he does. And he's been wrestling on like all the shows as well. Sometimes he wrestles like 2 matches a week. It's just insane the amount of work he does. Okay, so we have a match that's very built on story in terms of its build. It's very much built on story, and they've kind of combined a bunch of different stories together and a lot of lore, which I think is really interesting. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing what they do with that story. And it is Chris Jericho and the Golden Elite, which is Kenny Omega and Kota Ibushi, versus the Don Callis family, which is Konosuke Takeshita, Sammy Guevara, and Will Ospreay. We don't even start with this one. There's so much. There's the Chris Jericho Sammy Guevara split. They've been friends since the first Dynamite, and Sammy turned heel on Jericho at Grand Slam after what? It's got to be 4.5 years of. It's probably it's about 4 years of being friends in kayfabe. It's pretty crazy how long that lasted. Then you've got Jericho's beef with Don Callis because of this. And this whole build-up of it all. Also his beef with Will Ospreay, which is from All In. And then you've got Will Ospreay's beef with Kenny Omega because of their matches, along with Don Callis' beef with Kenny Omega and Kota Ibushi. And then there's also Kenny's beef with Konosuke Takeshita. And then there's also Konosuke Takeshita's beef with Kota Ibushi as well, because of DDT Pro Wrestling. There's a lot going on here with the stories. I also think, given who's in the match, I think this will be really, really fun. I think there's a lot of very athletic names in this. I think you look at combinations like Omega and Ospreay, Omega Guevara, Omega Takeshita, and Ibushi. I think, obviously, Jericho is kind of the odd man out in that regard, but he still can go. He does his DDP yoga. But I'm very, in terms of story, I'm very intrigued to see how this all goes down, because there is a lot of things going on that are all colliding together in one match. And I have decided to go for the Don Callis family. And the reason why is because Takeshita, Guevara, and Ospreay are the new stars. I suspect that Ospreay, after this Wrestle Kingdom coming up, is probably going to sign with AEW. I think Takeshita, Guevara, and Ospreay next year are going to be major names for this company. And Ibushi is old. Kenny is getting up there in years. Jericho is really getting up there in years. And I think they can all take a loss. I think Takeshita further bragging that he's beat Kenny 3 times and sort of cemented himself would be a huge sticking point. But I also think there's elements of Sammy's story, there's elements of Will Ospreay's story that all fit into that. Yeah. I think I'm very intrigued for this match, and I think there's a lot of potential with it, story-wise. But I think Don Callis' family is probably going to win this one. Oh, I forgot also. How could I forget? Wrestle Kingdom, Kenny Omega vs. Chris Jericho was one of the matches. Not only a match that Don Callis put together, and that's not even kayfabe, that's a shoot. But that match, when Tony Khan watched that match, he came up with the idea of AEW, or at least the promotion that he had in mind, which became AEW. After seeing that match, he saw the market for it. So yeah, there's a lot of moving parts to this. The Golden Lovers, obviously, Omega and Ibushi, is a long-running story. Yeah. So yeah, I think the heels can coexist. That's my opinion. and I've chosen the
Yes.
Don Callis family.
I've also chosen the Don Callis family. This one was a bit more trickier because they've Takeshita and like anybody associated with Don Callis have been racking up wins a lot these last like month or so. Whilst Bro beat Jericho, the you know Golden Elite plus Takeshita won at All In. Then you beat Kenny Omega at All Out. Yeah, so they've been racking up a lot of wins. So I'm hesitant, but I will be picking them again.
Hmm.
I could see Golden Elite Jericho getting one win over them. That
Yeah,
could happen, but I have gone with Don Callis'
both
family.
both Jericho and Kenny have been losing a lot of pay-per-view matches.
Yeah, exactly.
Hmm, it's curious. It seems like with Ibushi, it's almost like he's giving into temptation a bit because it was supposed to be just one match with blood and guts, and he goes, "Well, I guess I'll wrestle at Wembley Stadium," and now he's like, "Well, I guess I'll wrestle on the Antonio Inoki show." And it just seems like Ibushi is just slowly being more drawn into, well, there's all these opportunities to wrestle for AEW. It's like it makes me wonder if he will consider signing at some point. I know he is getting up there in years and he's nowhere near his prime, but the stories they are telling with him and Kenny seem to be very important to the lore. And I would not be surprised if we see more Ibushi going forward because he seems to have caught the bug again for wrestling.
Mm.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on. We have a very interesting, peculiar match. Now, there's a lot of circumstances for this match that go into it. It is for the Ring of Honor Tag Team Championship. And due to injury to Adam Cole's ankle after Grand Slam, it is a 2-on-1 handicap match with MJF versus The Righteous. What I was saying before about the aesthetic of WrestleDream, I think The Righteous, I'd be curious to see if they do a special entrance. I'm not sure if they will, but I think The Righteous's gimmick would actually fit this pay-per-view's visual design if they're able to incorporate that. I don't know how,
Mm-hmm.
but I am curious about that. I'm also very curious about how this match is going to be booked. You've got the AEW World Champion defending a tag team championship against them. It's very curious. I think this is kind of the wild card of this pay-per-view. I don't know what to think of it. And I'm very interested to see what happens, but I don't see MJF losing to the Righteous even though it's a handicap match. I just feel like him losing the tag belts despite being world champion is a strange choice. Losing to FTR, challenging for the AEW tag belts, yes, but I feel like they would have retained if Adam Cole wasn't injured. I still think they're going to retain anyway. The Righteous have picked up some very interesting surprise victories lately, so there is an outside chance of it. They beat the Hardys on Collision. They won the Rampage qualifier match. But I just can't commit to saying the Righteous are going to get an upset victory. I just can't. So I'm picking MJF to win.
Mm. Yeah. This one, I originally went for MJF, but thinking about it, they are probably just going to want to drop the titles. I thought they might have a MJF beat the old sort of moment, sort of build up his momentum because he'll probably need it when building up towards Jay White. But I think I've changed my mind and I've gone with the Righteous because I think it just makes sense to drop the belts in this match. and not make them look bad, because it wouldn't, the victory for MJF wouldn't do them any favors. So
Yeah, if the Righteous win, it'll probably be through a lot of shenanigans.
yeah, they've got the advantage as well, so it
It is.
probably just makes sense to
It is
drop the
just
belt.
so bizarre, though. Just think about this. You seeing the Righteous pin the AEW World Champion is such a strange idea. It's so weird. Like, I know obviously it's kayfabe and all that, but there's just something about it. It's so bizarre to imagine the Righteous pinning him. But I suppose suppose we might actually see it. I think there's a lot of storytelling potential if MJF loses those belts, because he knows how much it means to Adam Cole. But there are also a lot of people surrounding MJF that are very against him, which could contribute. You've got Roddy Strong and the Kingdom are a big part of that. You've got the fact that Adam Cole is injured, and you've got the fact that Jay White is currently in a feud with him. So interestingly, Jay White was attacked by the Devil after Dynamite, which was an interesting twist of events. Don't know what to make of that. Some people are speculating that that is not actually MJF. Some people think it's the New Japan Bullet Club, and that the Devil is David Finlay.
I've seen a couple shots where one of them looks like Roderick Strong because of the neck.
Yeah, it could be the Kingdom. It is interesting. I don't know what David Finlay would have to do with MJF, though. That's the only thing. But Roddy Strong would. I'm not sure. I'm very curious to see where that leads. Anyway, so yeah, interesting. We've differed on this one. It is. It's a weird scenario, because both of us are predicting something that sounds unlikely on paper. I'm predicting that the odd man out is going to win a handicap match, and you're predicting that an ROH tag team is going to pin the AEW World Champion.
Yeah.
It's a very strange
This
match.
this honestly could go either way.
Yeah, if this was Vince
It's
McMahon
very
booking,
strange.
if this was Vince
Like
McMahon booking, I would.
if Cole wasn't injured, then yeah, Cole and MJF win easy, no doubt. But yeah, it's
Yeah, if this was Vince booking, I'd predict a no contest or a DQ. Like, it's just because it's so they're in such a corner with this one. But I think there's a lot of potential. I think they might try and do like a MJF tries to Hulk up and overcome the odds. That would be really entertaining. Like, what if what I think it was, is it Dutch that's the tall one? Like the super heavyweight?
I'm not that knowledgeable on them.
I think it might be Dutch. I wouldn't be surprised if MJF body slams him for a big pop. Yeah, it is Dutch. That's the one I'm thinking of. Vincent is the other one. Vincent and Dutch. Anyway, speaking of tag team wrestling, we have FTR versus Aussie Open. So I think this could be one of the contenders for match of the night in terms of in-ring. Both of these teams are exceptionally good at wrestling. That's very well known. My prediction comes down to pretty much what I said about the number one contenders match. I have an inkling they're going to do FTR versus the Bucks at Full Gear. So I suspect the FTR might retain this match. Though it wouldn't surprise me if Aussie Open win. It wouldn't surprise me, honestly. But I think FTR will retain here. And I anticipate a very, very good match.
Yeah. This one, yeah, I've gone for FTR. I don't think they're losing the belts anytime soon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it feels. I feel a bit bad for Aussie Open because they've been a bit of a losing streak at the moment.
They have, yes. They've
Losing
lost a
their
lot of
titles at
matches.
Wembley. Yeah, but it will just be another one to pile on, I guess, because I honestly don't know when they're going to drop the belts. FTR. I think I've predicted them twice in the last couple months
Honestly,
to drop the belt.
I feel like this may just be really predictable. I think the Bucks might beat them at Full Gear for it. I think that might be what they're gonna do.
It feels almost. It feels like it's nearing. It should be nearing its end. This reign, I think.
Yes, but I also feel like Aussie Open aren't the ones to beat them.
No, they're not. No.
There is a thing. The thing with this is that because the trios division exists, the tag team division seems to be a bit segmented. It's not as. It doesn't feel as big time as it used to. You know, back when AEW first started, the tag, like especially during sort of 2020-ish, the tag team division was very strong. And you had a lot of teams. You know, you had STU, you had Santana and Ortiz, you had Omega and Hangman, you had the Bucks, FTR, Private Party, you had the Lucha Brothers, you had Dark Order. You know, there was so many teams to go around. Even the like sort of not bigger teams at the time, like Jurassic Express and the Varsity Blondes as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, let's see. So now we get to the two sort of big main event matches, which are probably the ones I'm the most looking forward to, at least from a... Well, one of them from an in-ring standpoint and one of them from a story standpoint. The match on this card I'm probably looking forward to the most from a story standpoint is Hangman Adam Page versus Swerve Strickland, who have had very, very, very good promos as of late, including one that happened on Dynamite. Actually, two on Dynamite, because there's one this week and one the week before. Or at least it was the week before that, maybe. Now, there's quite a few possibilities here, because there's a real argument to be made that Hangman Adam Page on a sort of a comeback run would be great. Because he subtly, I feel like he subtly hinted at CM Punk in his promo today when he said, ever since I lost the title, there's been a black cloud over my head. I wouldn't be surprised if CM Punk is involved in that black cloud. There's probably other elements to it as well, but it seems like he was hinting that ever since CM Punk left AEW, he feels like he's been rejuvenated. And that's not a mistake. You know, the only exception really to that is when he beat Moxley at Revolution in that Texas death match, and also when the Elite re-signed and reformed. But as a singles wrestler, this seems like Hangman's finally getting his first big feud since he lost the belt to Punk a year and a half ago. And that could be a great way for him to get back into that main event scene. But I don't think this is the time. And I think Swerve Strickland is going to win, because that guy is on one hell of a run. And I think Swerve is bona fide main event material, and he is white hot. Especially with his time with the Mogul Embassy and just his promos in general, his matches, everything has really fallen into place. And he seems to... It's interesting because a lot of people used to say, oh, he's the standout guy from Hit Row. And these days, Hit Row seems so irrelevant as part of his career. Like, it's not even close to being his biggest accomplishment, because the stuff he's done in AEW with Keith Lee and then with the Mogul Embassy is far better and far exceeds that by miles.
Yeah.
And I love
Yeah.
the story they've told of ever since he got locked in that coffin, he's turned into like a fucking psychopath. And he's
A
like,
little bit, yeah.
he's losing all of his empathy. And he looks like a walking zombie.
Yeah, I really like what they've done with this build-up from what I've seen. And this is probably the second biggest match on the card, I think, from build-up alone. Like the three matches I think have been sort of the biggest for me is Cage, Darby,
Mm-hmm.
then Danielson, Zack Sabre Jr., and then this.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the top three in no particular order. But
I
yeah,
would agree.
I'm very much looking forward to seeing this match, and I think that Swerve should win. I think this is a big moment for him, and to really push him into that potential world title picture, I think having him win this match very convincingly, I think is the best way to go about it, because I think Paige can eat the loss and we can make Swerve really push into that title contention and really make him a top guy.
Yeah,
And
because if MJF is able to survive Jay White, I think Swerve would be a great opponent for him.
for the end of the year, because realistically, MJF is probably going to have either like 2 or 3 final opponents for the title this year. One of them will obviously be Jay White, as they've started on Dynamite last night. And then you'll probably have someone that Winter is coming. Maybe there'll be someone else in between. Maybe like after Full Gear. Because I imagine Jay is going to face Max at Full Gear. So Swerve being that final opponent of the year possibly is maybe the way to go.
I could also see, I could see it being 3 matches. I could see it being Full Gear, being the last pay-per-view, and then Winter is Coming is a big show, but it's not the last Dynamite. And then you could have a 3rd match, which is the literal, this is the last match before his contract expires. Which I wouldn't be surprised if they pulled Wardlow out of the bag, even though he has lost all momentum and hasn't been on TV since he lost the TNT title. You do have to remember that they have a big story together.
They do. Momentum, though, is also a very big thing when it comes to main event title matches. And I think at the moment, Jay's on a really good momentum. And Swerve, if he wins this match with the build-up that's been really good and consistent for them, it would swing it in his favour to be realistically part of that picture by the end of the year.
For sure.
And I think that's it's either whoever wins this match should be the next contender after White, realistically. And I think Swerve is probably the way to go about it.
Do we, because if we suspect that MJF is going to face Jay White at Full Gear, do we do the Swerve Keith Lee match before he gets to the title?
I think they've just given up on that, honestly.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to happen. I gave up like 2 months ago.
Yeah, it's sad because I actually think that would have been a good match. Even though Keith Lee
for some reason haven't done it. They should have done it literally a year ago, really.
Yeah, I remember saying that Full Gear 2022 would have been the ideal time to do it. But they didn't. But now we have the Mogul Embassy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, but yeah, it's not been clear, I guess, but yeah, I've gone for Swerve.
I'm also really glad that, I think AEW has handled Swerve's like black pride stuff really well, and they haven't gone down the really cringy route that like WWE 10 years ago would have done.
They could have done, yeah.
Yeah,
Like the only reference is obviously Swerve could potentially be the first black
yeah,
AEW World Champion,
yeah.
which I think would be cool. I don't think there's another wrestler on the roster who has the same momentum as him. Like a year ago, I would have liked Keith Lee to be given that push because I think he is a guy that is just all round really good in the ring, and it has got a really good charisma about him. But Swerve, I think, is different in the same way of having charisma. You know,
Well, Swerve
he
has
is a very
built.
charismatic promo
Swerve
and very good in the ring.
Swerve has taken the time to really build his character a lot more than Keith Lee has.
Yeah, he's been given a lot more time on TV.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The Mogul Embassy has been a massive success for him, especially because the Mogul affiliates originally wasn't working, and they got rid of the two
No,
that didn't.
they
That fucking
thought they've made it work. It's been sort of a sleeper hit, really, in
yeah.
the last couple months.
Well, it probably helps that Prince Nana is so fun. Like, what I love about it is that Swerve takes himself really seriously and Prince Nana doesn't. It's quite a contrast.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, you know, surrounded by fucking Big Toa Leona and Bishop Khan and Brian Cage certainly helps. And for a couple of weeks, AR Fox fit really well in that, but then he got taken out of that because he couldn't go to the UK, which sucked. And I would have loved to see heel AR Fox in the Mogul Embassy going forward. And they should have kept it. Honestly, they really should have kept that because I was really enjoying it. And that massive beating they did on Nick Wayne was a great angle. It's like one of the most violent things I've ever seen on wrestling TV. Anyway, yes, predict Swerve to win. He has the momentum at the moment. I think Page can take a loss, and I think there will be a time when Page will get back to the main event, but it's going to take him time to rebuild it. And if there's a character that can do long-term storytelling and be involved in a flow of wins and losses to eventual win, it's Page, because we've seen him do it before. But yeah, I'm just really glad because I think these are two guys I've wanted to see in a big singles match on pay-per-view, and neither of them have had it in a long time. So it's good that they've put them together for this. Now we move on to the main event, which should be a technical masterpiece. We have Bryan Danielson versus Zack Sabre Jr. This was supposed to happen at the first Forbidden Door, and it got cancelled because of Bryan Danielson's concussion. But we're finally getting it now. It's not massive in terms of character, but there is a feud. There is a built-in feud to this. And Zack Sabre Jr.'s sort of saltiness towards Danielson, you know, copping out of his match. I also think I would love it if they have Nigel McGuinness on commentary for this match, because I think he would really fit
Definitely
what they're doing with this. I've loved every second that Nigel McGuinness like insults Bryan Danielson on commentary. It's just so funny. But yes, I think this will be a great match. I think we'll see a real showcase of what the fundamentals of pro wrestling can be. You know, this is what traditional pro wrestling looks like in 2023 at the elite level. And when you hear some people in the industry say our sport, when they say that term, it's this kind of match I think of. This feels like, if obviously it's within kayfabe, but if you were to make pro wrestling an Olympic sport, I feel like it's this kind of match that you would see. But I also think that both of these guys are really good at character work as well. I think Zack Sabre has really found his fit as the sort of cocky heel. Yeah, I'm the best technician, whether you like it or not. And what I like about Zack Sabre is that he's like a wrestling nerd, in that he's like, I know all the moves and you don't. And he also has that, you know, he has that cocky Britishness to him as well, you know. Oh, hello, orange bollocks. So, yeah. I am very much looking forward to this match. I think Bryan Danielson is going to win, though. Zack Sabre Jr. isn't even a main eventer in New Japan. He's just a very highly acclaimed pro wrestler. Bryan Danielson, on the other hand, is a main event talent in AEW. He's a much bigger star, and I feel like it would be very strange if Zack Sabre Jr. won this with Tony Khan booking it. It's not impossible. It could happen. It would be huge for him if it did happen. But I think Bryan Danielson will win. I think there is something to be said about this retirement run he's having. And I think when it comes to who is going to beat him in a match, I think they will save it for an AEW talent. I think chucking away a loss to a New Japan talent, even like Zack Sabre Jr., who is great, I think having him lose to a New Japan talent doesn't work for the plan when it comes to how you book this guy in his final sort of year of full-time wrestling. So I predict Danielson to win. He's conquered Okada. I think he will conquer Sabre. And I presume that at some point in the future, he's probably going to have a match with Will Ospreay as well, which would be an absolute dream come true. Danielson versus Ospreay sounds like a... Oh, that sounds like something real special. Anyway, what's your prediction?
Yeah, I've gone for Danielson. I think it makes sense for him to go over in this bout. I think this will be a very, very good match. It will most likely be match tonight, most likely. And yeah, for me, Danielson winning, I think, is probably the most likely outcome.
Yeah.
That's sort of my reasoning. I don't have much reasoning other than I think just Danielson probably going over makes sense.
I think Zack Sabre even being in the match is enough platform for him to increase his value as a star.
Yes. Yeah, so.
Yeah. And yeah, I'm pretty certain this is going to go on last. I think this will be the main event.
Yeah, yeah. I imagine this will most likely be the main event. I'll be really surprised if it's not.
Yeah. There would have to be some kind of really, really catastrophic, unplanned circumstances if it wasn't. But yeah. I think this will be a really good show. I think it has a lot of potential.
This will be a very wrestling heavy show, I'd say.
I think all the matches have potential to succeed because of who's involved in them. I would say there is a risk when it comes to the handicap match, but MJF is involved, and that man is such a student of the game that he can create really unique stories out of very strange matches. So I trust him and his agent to really craft something interesting out of it.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah. It seems like the only thing that MJF hasn't been able to get himself out of is Tanahashi's knees through his title reign. It's the one thing he can't fix is Tanahashi's knees because they're just so bad. But apart from that, he's been able to really have banger after banger after banger with in any sort of circumstance as well, because there are a lot of very odd matches he's been put in this year, and even the year before that, to be fair. But yeah, I'm very curious to see how this pay-per-view turns out, and to see if once again AEW can pull off the goods, because they've been doing really well recently. Like pretty much ever since Collision started, they've been on a real hot streak of shows.
They have. They very much have.
Yeah, so any more thoughts? before we sort of wrap this up?
No, I just think, yeah, I think this will be a very, very fun show. I think this will be very, like I said, very wrestling heavy. I don't imagine there'll be a lot of angles. The only angles I can imagine will probably be around maybe the Derby Cade match, MTF most likely, maybe Starks. Other than that, I'm not expecting a lot of angles on this show.
Hmm.
I'm expecting a lot of just pure wrestling because I think that's
Yeah,
how this is sort of being billed as.
yeah. I feel like I mean, there are storylines ongoing within this pay per view, but I feel like because it's the Antonio Inoki pay per view, it's probably going to be more focused on the wrestling, and the
Yeah.
angles will probably carry us more into Full Gear, which will be the more sort of storyline driven show. And yeah, because Full Gear is in California, I'm very interested to see what they book for that show. That's for certain. Anyway, thank you all for joining this live stream. All 0 of you. Well, actually, 4 technically. It's in 4 views, so it's not nothing. But yes, that has been our AEW Wrestle Dream predictions. We'll see you on the review when it comes out. I bid you adieu, a good night, a mwah, and a goodbye. A bang.